Well, I'll cut to the chase. Working with the natural features, wooded areas and so on, there's enough room for 12 holes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's loads.
Yeah, a full-size golf course is 18 holes. At most, you'd get 15 holes if they're all par threes.
Is 3 not a good par?
You need par threes, fours, and fives.
Right. What about bogeys?
But bogeys aren't. The point is, there isn't enough room for a full-size golf course, so the company won't be interested. Oh. Unless you can find some more land.
Annabelle, what can I do for you?
Hello and welcome to Hunting Button House, a BBC Ghosts podcast. I am Luke and I am joined by Tash. How are you, Tash?
I'm alright, thanks, Luke. How are you?
I'm not too bad.
I think we both sound a bit like we've just woken up, and that's because we've just woken up.
Pretty much.
It's quite early. Well, it's not early, but it is early.
Early for us, yeah, to be recording, yeah.
We're recording 2 episodes this week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's early morning, then we're going to go to work, and then we're going to record another next week's episode after, because Luke is going away for work to Belgium. So he's not here all next week, so we won't be able to record the podcast.
And we don't want to put it back a week because then
we're getting into Christmas, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it really.
How has your week been anyway?
It's been good, thanks. We've been away, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
To a cabin in the woods, technically.
But, I mean,
with a hot tub.
Basically, yeah. It's a fancy cabin in the woods, I suppose. But yeah, it was really nice. We were by a big duck pond.
Lots of ducks, lots of deer too.
Yeah. I only saw a few of the deer, to be fair. It was only on 2 of the days. But they were just happy as Larry in a pen, so... Yeah.
It was a big pen.
Yeah.
Paddock.
A paddock, yeah. But yeah, it was nice. Just a nice weekend away, really, wasn't it?
That's why we let our episode go out. We were feeling generous.
Yeah. Do we have any feedback?
Yes, we do. So Caroline says, the bill. I think I mentioned the bill last episode.
Yeah.
There was the antique guy was in the bill. And I looked, he's also in Casualty. So he had done the trio, I think.
Almost, yeah. What's the other one?
Heartbeat. Currently available in its entirety on You channel. Not heard of that channel before.
I think it's like Dave and You now.
Oh, okay.
It's like if you go on now.
Overseas listeners won't know.
Know
what that is.
Yeah, there's a channel called Dave in the UK.
I've watched the first 2 or 3 seasons in recent months, out of interest as I used to watch it back in the day, and boy was police indifferent in the mid-80s. It's quite uncomfortable watching, although by series 3 it's a little less problematic. Howard's Way was huge back in the day. Fair enough. It was key Sunday night viewing. It wasn't really a soap as it had distinct series and story arcs rather than ongoing in the way that soaps are. Wensleydale with Apricot, king of cheeses.
I think I've seen that. There's a farm shop near us that do a lot of cheeses, and they do that. Yeah.
I've lost my place now. Regarding Thomas being Scottish, I watched something recently where Matt Bainton said it came from something in the way he said "damn your eyes" in early episodes, and clearly at some point they decided, well, why couldn't he actually be Scottish? Caroline's History Corner. Actually, the sort of corsets which caused so much damage to internal organs were much more the Victorian style, where they were designed to give an unrealistic waistline. In earlier times, if you had the luxury of having a corset that was made to fit you, as opposed to utilising second-hand clothing which might be too long or short for the body for your shape, or dig in under the arms, they were pretty comfortable to wear.
Okay.
And was supportive more than restrictive. Having made and worn such garments for myself for work in museums, I know this to be the case. That's really interesting. I agree this to not be one of the best episodes. There's nothing wrong with it. and there are some isolated funny moments, but the actual storyline is minimal. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of what we said,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, that like it's kind of echoes our feedback. There's no strong like storyline, but there's good bits in it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Marianne said, "No worries about the lack of ghost story, Tash." Thank you, Marianne.
Well,
Thank you for
to
understanding.
let you off the hook.
Thank you. More understanding than I've had from Luke, that's for sure. We can get our fix next time. This was an interesting episode. If not really as strong as some others. Kitty thinking she is pregnant, Mike realising just exactly what being a dad will entail, Thomas revealing his Scottish roots, wee Ben, I think ghosts don't have to honour established human property lines, although it's obvious some ghosts have more expansive territories than others. Remember those two German pilot fellows floating outside the upper floor apartment in the second episode of season 1? They appeared to have to float there for eternity. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
Yeah,
I think we did mention about how like horrible that
that
would
would
be.
have been, yeah. Just like sat there waiting. Yeah, because I suppose if someone had built the, assuming the apartment wasn't...
Tell it's early, that was my morning alarm.
If you think that if the apartment had been built, assuming the apartment wasn't there when they died, if the apartment had been built like just a little bit further along, like they would have been in the apartment, or maybe even in the wall cavity. Like you don't know, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
That would have been horrendous.
That's the point, actually. If they were in the building and they could touch the floor, because we know obviously ghosts interact with
the floor,
floors.
could they
have just walked off from their position instead of being stuck in an imaginary plane in the air? Who knows?
Oh dear.
Wouldn't be as funny, would it? So, you know.
Well, no. Marianne said, I still wonder if they had to dangle there 24/7. Fanny pouting about the land sale. I can see how that would be an issue for her since it was her property, or was her property. Overall, I think I'd give it an 8. So, Nick said, I totally agree with you that this episode feels like a filler. It's fun, but not much happens. I do find it very funny that Julian is so critical of the North when Simon Farnaby is actually the most northern of the 6 idiots in real life, and Jim Howick is from down south. Thomas being Scottish makes me laugh so much. I think in the bloopers from series 1, when he shouts, answer the question, damn your eyes, someone comments that he sounded Scottish and it stemmed from there. I may have dreamed it though, but 2 people have said that, so I'm pretty sure that's probably not a dream.
I think it does. When you saying that now, when you hear him say "damn your eyes," it does sound a little bit Scottish.
I just had a little bit of feedback that I found from Alison.
Okay.
And I can't remember if I read it out in the last episode, so I'm going to read it out again.
Double read.
Yeah. So
just very quickly, I just had a look. Simon Farnaby's from County Durham, so that's about as far north as you can get.
Yeah. It's like Newcastle, isn't it?
Basically, yeah.
So, yeah. He doesn't sound like he's...
No, not at all.
So Alison said, Simon did work on the Mighty Boosh. I can't remember.
Yes, yeah.
That's where I first encountered him. In Series 1, he played a pretentious version of himself that Howard was fawning over. And in Series 3, played a Howard Moon lookalike, Harold Boone. He went on to do Mindhorn with Julian Barrett, and as you said, Bunny and the Bull, which was produced by Paul King. They now collaborate on his films. So I don't think I read that out, so I'm really sorry I missed that one, but I've read it out now. So that was all the feedback. So should we get on with the episode?
So this week we are looking at episode 3 of season 5. Did I say season? Yeah, series 5.
Series 5.
Right, season is it's an American way of doing it. We always say series here, which confuses everyone really. We should just come up with an agreed term. But we're both too stubborn. Anyway, it's entitled Home, directed by Simon Hind. Written by Matthew Bainton and Jim Howick again, as they wrote last week's one as well. I don't think that's anything... I thought about it and I was like, oh, that's weird that they've written both, and it's probably just like they usually write 2 episodes like the parents do. It's just happened that they're back to back this
Yeah.
week. And the original air date was the 20th of October, 2023. So we start and we basically see, I just called it a surveying montage. There's nothing really to note of it other than that they're having the land sort of surveyed. And the culmination of this is the surveyor mentions that they have enough room for 12 holes of a golf course, which Mike gets really excited about and says yes, until he reminds him that a full golf course is actually 18 holes.
I thought it was 13 holes that they had enough room for. I wrote 13.
So he says 12, and then he says later if they're all par 3, they could fit 15.
Oh, where did I get 13 from?
Maybe it was the par 3, maybe? I don't know, yeah. So he says that, yeah, if they all have them par 3, then it could fit 15. And then they don't really understand what par is.
I wouldn't know either. Do you know about golf? I don't.
It's how many. So par is, so if it's par 3, to get 0, you have to get the ball in the hole in 3 hits, basically. So a par 4 is 4 hits, par 5 is 5 hits, and the less you do. So if you get it in 1, you get a hole in 1, but you're like 4 under your score. Sorry, this is really boring, like explaining the rules of golf. But basically, yeah, if it's par 3, you've got to try and that's, it's more difficult the more par it is.
Okay.
So you have to multiple different holes. Which Mike says, but what about bogeys? Which is, again, it's just being under par.
I thought that was cricket.
No.
I think I'm getting confused with
Golf.
googly.
Yeah, that's cricket, yeah. So yeah, they don't really understand golf, and he basically says that they're not going to be interested in a 12-hole golf course unless they could find some more land, which Alison has an idea, and she makes a phone call, and we see a phone ring in that says Annabelle, and Barclay answers. It hits his mobile as we go into the intro. So after the intro, we see the ghosts all waiting in the TV room, waiting for Alison to turn up to turn the TV on. I thought Julian was there. Why did he not give it a go? You know what I mean?
Well,
I know it's difficult.
maybe
but
it's multiple buttons. Because we have to press 2 remotes to turn our telly on.
It's true, but it could press at least one. I don't know, and then the next. I don't know. Changing the channel would be difficult.
It's difficult for him though.
Yeah, that's
Hurts
true.
his finger, doesn't it?
It does, as we found out with him writing the letter.
Yeah.
And we see that Alison and Mike are basically preparing to butter up Barclay. They're making him cookies. They're inviting him over. They're brownies. Sorry, not cookies. Yeah. They're going to try and sweet talk him, basically, as they know how difficult Barclay can be. Mike wants to make a start on the nursery, and Alison basically warns her off because they want the nursery to be Lady Button's room, but she hasn't told her yet. As they're watching the TV, Julian notices that a Labour MP has got a blue plaque. And he says, "What did he ever do?" As it says, he helped out orphan children, and he just says, "Pa." And I don't know if it's Robin or someone asks what a blue plaque is, basically, and the captain explains what it is. Basically, in summary, you only get them if you're important and dead.
Have you seen any blue plaques?
I have, yeah. There's a lot in London, isn't there? If you just walk around, like, they're just everywhere. Blue plaques are.
I think, do we have some around here?
Good question. Yeah, there's one at a few houses we've been to, like the houses, like
National Trust.
Yeah, National Trust places. I'm sure I've seen them there.
There's any in our town.
I think there's one in Wolverhampton, actually. Yeah.
We've just given away that we live in Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
I'm not from Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I think there is one, actually. I think I remember seeing one at St Paul's.
St Paul's?
Yeah, like near there on one of the walls.
Do you mean St Peter's?
Is it? Did I say something? Yeah. Same thing. One of the saints.
I've definitely seen the ones in Liverpool.
Yeah.
John Lennon and Paul McCartney's houses.
Yes, yeah.
But I can't think.
I remember seeing the one in London, and I just thought it was strange. It was just a random house, but it had a blue plaque on, and apparently it was like some Brazilian leader that had lived there for a period of time, like in the 1700s or something like that. I thought that's interesting. The only reason I remembered his name was because I think he was in that game Civilization, where you build up your country basically. It's the only reason I knew him. I was like, okay, I've heard that name before.
Maybe we should try and get one on our house.
Yeah, I wonder who's lived here. Probably no one, I'd imagine.
No, it's a shame. We'll make one don't want to give the ending away. But
well,
anyway.
When one of us dies, we'll say the creators of... I don't think this will cut the mustard, but... creators of mustard... oh, these are the one then. The creators of Haunting Button House.
I've forgotten what we're doing.
I just default to my my past. Anyway. Moving on. But yeah, when the captain sort of explains this, they all start to think about themselves as potentially being blue plaque worthy. They don't say it at this point, but you can tell on their look on their faces.
Yeah, they're all
basically.
pondering what could.
Alison, Mike asks where she's put the nursery things as they arrived earlier, and she explains that they're in the walk-in safe, to which Mike is flabbergasted that they have a walk-in safe. She says that it's right at the stairs, and he says, "Oh, that explains it. Then I never turn right at the stairs. Everything's left," he says. So it'd be interesting if you look at the book now to see what's actually to the right of the stairs, to see what the rooms are, because I imagine there is all the rooms that we see them in are all to the left of the house. They mention it's quite sad that they've got no valuables to actually put in their safe. But they do find a box of old books and ledgers, basically. The ghosts all gather in the main room as it's time to sing a song, and they're going to sing Fanny's song. And she wants to sing On a Rugged Cross again.
The old rugged cross.
The old rugged cross. I thought it was On a Rugged Cross. Okay, I don't know my songs. So I'm imagining it's like a hymn.
It's a hymn, yeah.
And they all groan, saying it's boring. And they say it's no reach for the stars.
They're not wrong,
It's
though,
true,
are they, really?
Julian, Humphrey and Thomas begin to argue over who would deserve a blue plaque. Julian says that basically nobody knew who Thomas was. Julian says on his side that he was on the Big Breakfast and he even met Shaggy.
Wow.
So what a name drop. And Humphrey kind of explains that, well, if Guy Fawkes has got one, then he should get one because he's essentially the same as Guy Fawkes.
Definitely.
The Tudor Guy Fawkes. Even though, well, he says, I led a plot to overthrow the Queen, apparently. So yeah. But yeah, they all, as they're sort of arguing about this, they all get ready to begrudgingly sing this hymn until Alison comes in, and they're all thankful that she saved them. She says she's found a ledger from what looks like a party back in Kitty's time. And Kitty explains what it was. She says it was a party. It was her wake, which brings the mood down a little. And Alison then goes on to explain that the day before, because there was another party the day before. No. She says it's that day. She said it's... I think it was the day before, actually, wasn't it? There's
recent times,
yeah. There was another party, and Kitty mentions that this was Pineapple Day, and they're a bit confused about this. She says it's the first and only time she ever ate a pineapple, and says it was a gift. As we basically go into this flashback, which we've not had one of these for a while, I think. The last flashback would have been Robin, I think. I think that was last series, wasn't
Maybe
it?
that's why we've not enjoyed the last two episodes
Maybe,
as much.
yeah.
We've had no flashbacks.
Yeah, no flashbacks, and it's drags it down a point. But yeah, we basically get this sort of flashback of Lord Bommenback's party. He's returned from the Americas, and they've sort of unveiled a pineapple to show off to everybody. I imagine that it would have been like, oh, they've never seen a pineapple before.
And it's a very like when you think of the more basic of fruits,
Yeah.
like it's very like extravagant, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like the sort of the spikes on it,
Yeah,
the way it looks like it is very exotic.
It doesn't look like anything that we have.
no,
like
no,
here,
no.
yeah.
Like it does. It's quite. I imagine. I know this sounds silly, but I imagine it was quite spectacular
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see. Like if you've never seen anything like it before.
What is that? And how do I even eat it? I only found out recently a pineapple facts here, everyone. A pineapple isn't a singular fruit. It's actually a collection of like berries, essentially. Do you know all the ridges and stuff? They're
I
all
can
like...
understand that, yeah. Because you can kind of like... There's a way to cut it or where you can just like pull out the things in sticks. Can't
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
So-
yeah. So yeah, there you go.
Very good.
But yeah, so...
Yet we choose to slice it.
yeah.
Take the middle out
Yeah.
and just slice it.
Yeah, we're just too lazy though, aren't we? Like that's us.
And put it in a tin.
Put it on make a little hedgehog out of it as well. Pineapple hedgehog.
Yeah, cheese and pineapple. Stick it on some gammon.
I like to think of the people who'd never seen a pineapple before and how exotic it was, and now it's like everybody has one for like if you do any kind of like social gathering, you get the pineapple out.
What kind of social gathering?
Well, no, yeah, that sounds wrong. That's not our vibe. Let's just leave it there. So yeah, they unveil this pineapple, and Kitty is the first one to stand up and tries to pick it up, basically.
She asks, doesn't she? Can I touch it?
Which Eleanor seems annoyed about. So Kitty picks it up and appears to be pricked by the pineapple. Obviously, pineapple is prickly.
A little bit pricked.
Yeah. So it's not inconceivable that she would be sort of stabbed by it. Eleanor mocks her for getting pricked. Very much bad. What do you call them? Bad actors. They're not a bad actor, like, but you know, like somebody who's just always like on your back for any slight thing that you do. That's Eleanor. She does soften by the end, but you know, yeah. But they all enjoy a few slices of this pineapple. And Kitty says it was the most delicious thing that she ever tasted, and she would have loved to have tasted it again. She's quite sad.
So sad.
Yeah. And she says, they ask how she died on that day, obviously being, the day that she died and Pineapple Day, what actually happened. And she says, she fell asleep. And we find out that was just what was written on her tombstone, which is, they kind of try to tell her that's just something
What
that they
people
write.
say.
Yeah. And as they're talking about this, Pat says that you can actually just drop dead and die. And he says his mate did it during a penalty shootout. And then there's a slight pause and he says he saved it. So yeah, at least he's useful. Kitty says that she wants to leave now. She's bored of this conversation. She wants to go and watch Is It Cake? This explains a joke earlier on where they find the ledger and she brings it out, and she asks if it's a cake, as she's now in the world of anything could be a cake.
Yeah, it's a great show, to be fair.
It is.
Enjoy.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Well, I like it in small doses. It's fun for a bit, and then you're like, I always get it wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Like, it is a cake. Unbelievable. I like the fake ones now where they're like, "Is it cake?" and it's quite clearly a cake. Yeah. Like a bowling ball, and then it's just like a really crudely made one. She leaves, and then all the ghosts say that they don't buy that that's the reason that she died, that she fell asleep. They reckon there's some ulterior motive here. They think that her sister is the culprit, but they've got no evidence to go off of, so they start sleuthing.
They kind of think who was there, and they're like, well, Annie and Mary weren't there, would have been there, but obviously aren't here anymore, so...
They've got few witnesses now. So yeah, I mean, we come to this later, but it does leave literally Humphrey and Robin.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Which is interesting how far back, really, Kitty...
Yeah.
Yeah, because I never even considered her... When I say old, like, never considered her to be older, technically, older than Thomas.
Yeah, because she's essentially like 300 years old. She's like, like 1700s, isn't it? Where Thomas is probably like the late 1700s, probably, or early 1800s. I'm not sure. Anyway, Mike is showing Obi the safe, and they start theorizing some things that it could turn into. Not seen Obi for a bit, actually.
No, we haven't. No.
And we don't really see him
He
in this
doesn't
episode.
tend to. I don't think we actually see him physically. He's always anymore again.
Yeah.
I think we only saw him once when it was that party.
Yeah.
And then he's always been on the phone. But when you think, 2023, when they're recording this, wouldn't have been COVID, really. So
I think it makes more sense that he'd be on the phone as well, because realistically, how often is he going to just pop round to their big house? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like it's kind of, it's not on the way to anywhere.
Yeah,
is it?
exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
sort of.
It makes more sense
Yeah,
to
definitely.
the video calls him. But they come up with some ideas. Mike says he could turn into a bar that he just calls safe. He also, they then say that he could do some recordings in there, and they test if it's soundproof. I really liked Mike's song here, where it just keeps repeating, got a little safe. And they find out that this is soundproof when you shut the door, which very much feels like an omen to what's going to come later on. So Barclay arrives outside, and no one hears him ringing the bell because obviously Mike is testing his soundproof vault, and Alison is engrossed in Is It Cake with Kitty. They eventually do find him, let him in, but he seems annoyed by all of this, that he's been left outside. And he also says, when offered a brownie, that he's on a diet. So immediately their one tactic to butter him up is completely
Probably
failed.
He's in a bad mood.
Well, yeah, probably, yeah. He's on a diet. Won't go through the boring bit of basically them explaining what the situation is. And he seems fully on board with their plan. However, as it is Barclay, there's always a bit of a swizz with him, basically. And he says that they don't use their land, but he does for farming. So he says he needs more of a split. So he thinks 80-20 to him would be more...
Unreal, isn't it?
Yeah. When they ask him what he's farming, he basically tells them it's fallow, is it, where you just leave it? But it's been fallow for, and then he asks them how long they've been here. So immediately, it just tells them that he's just trying to wind them up, basically. They go off to discuss in private. Alison calls him a name. I can't even remember what it was. So I don't think it was that rude, but I just can't remember exactly what she calls him. But Mike says that, he's just trying it on. They just need to negotiate with him. And Alison says that Mike will have to be the negotiator because he's a dinosaur and won't want to discuss and be beaten by a woman, basically. Mike says that he can't negotiate, and he sort of alludes back to the last time they had to negotiate, where he immediately shook his hand because it was offered to him. But he reluctantly agrees to do this because Alison is going to deal with Lady Button. We see Alison. We see Lady Button. I don't know why I start saying Lady Button. It's funny. We start seeing her.
It's very formal.
Yeah. I put Lady B in all the notes. I don't know why. Anyway, she's reading a book as Alison walks in to try and get her attention, basically. And Fanny immediately knows something's up, and she says, "Do you have to hum and fuss in here? Would you do it somewhere else?" And she explains that she's looking for somewhere to put the nursery, and Fanny says she knows the perfect room for the nursery. And it turns out this is on the other side of the house in what is just a mess of a room, basically. Alison says that it's not great because they're so far away from the baby, and Fanny says, "Well, exactly." There's another point. So doesn't really understand that they'd want to be a bit closer. So they go off and start looking for more rooms to look in. But again, Alison isn't being direct. She comes back to bite her a bit later. The captain gets Julian and Thomas together to try and figure out how Kitty died, but they're engrossed in this conversation about who deserves a blue plaque. Also, I made a note here that Thomas, whenever they bring up Eleanor, he keeps calling her a bitch. Yeah. And I was like, where is this coming from? And it pays off later on. But I was like, this is so weird.
I remember him saying that, but I just thought, wow.
I think he calls her a bitch 3 times before they bring it up. And I was like, why does he keep saying it?
There's a backstory there.
There is, yeah.
Although he would have died after, so...
Yeah.
I was going to say,
You'd have known that.
they would never have been in the same... They would have never have met, would they?
No, because they couldn't have. It's too far apart, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking, maybe like a backstory where, he'd met her and she'd knocked him back or something.
I do find that Thomas gives very low-key incel energy, just angry at women. He has that kind of demeanour about him. Obviously, it wasn't a thing back then. I mean, it probably was a thing. It was just called something else. Yeah. Definitely was a thing. But anyway... they mention that Kitty has no marks on her and no obvious cause of death. So it must be a silent killer. So they suspect it was poison.
A silent killer.
Silent killer. They suspect it was poison, and Thomas remembers... Sorry, not Thomas. Humphrey remembers who was in the kitchen that day because he was just left there to watch as he was on his side, just watching the kitchen staff working. He says that Eleanor never came in. And the food was all served to be shared, basically. So if something was poisoned, it would have got all of them and not just her. He did note that the individual dishes, which was the desserts, were served, individually. Hence,
individual dishes.
But they were all served and only handled by somebody who actually liked Kitty, who used to sort of be nice. Kitty was nice to her when Eleanor would shout at her. So it couldn't have been her either. And they realised they need to speak to somebody who was a bit less static that day. And they mention, I think you said earlier, that Mary and Annie are gone now. So the only person who was there was Robin. As they all go off to find him, Julian, Thomas and Humphrey sort of stop Alison and Fanny in passing. And she asks them who she thinks would deserve a blue plaque. And as they're all arguing, she basically says, I don't want to get involved. I'm going to send off the history of the house to the people who do the blue plaques. I don't even know what the thing is. And basically let them decide on who deserves a blue plaque, which, surprisingly, they're quite happy with. They're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll see. I guess it's an official stamp then. So we see Mike still trying to sort of convince Barclay, who seems adamant that he's interested in the deal, but he's adamant that it needs to be made worth his while. You know what I mean? He should get something out of this rather than it be a fair 50-50 split. And Mike says that he's going to get his phone to show him some mock-ups of what the golf course would look like, which Barclay says, I know what a golf course looks like. And they end up going into the walk-in safe, basically, and Mike, in the sort of soundproof area, confronts Barclay.
Oh, I say. A walk-in safe. That is a curious old thing. Ironic to have all this space for valuables when you're so strapped you need to sell away your land.
Yeah. Look, I know what you're doing, Barclay. You're lowballing us because you know we're desperate.
That's not drywall, that's solid.
Look. You know this deal suits you, but you can't resist working our situation to your own advantage.
Not exactly wise to insult the person you're trying to do business with. I think I'll be off now, if it's all the same to you. That wasn't supposed to come off, was it?
No?
Help! Help! Alison, let us out! Alison! Help!
Why does he need to shut the door? Who's listening?
Yeah, I guess it's just like a... do you know if
intimidation thing?
Possibly, yeah.
Because it's like, right. And then he goes and shuts the door and I'm like, Why have you done that? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's really odd that he's already got Barkley cornered in the safe. I just don't know. And Mike's not exactly an intimidating kind of person.
I guess it's like a subtle thing of like, I think if you're going to have like a private conversation with someone, you'd shut the door or something and say, you know, can you go to a different room? So I wonder if it's that kind of thing. But yeah,
it's just, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's the plot point, isn't it? So
yeah.
Like, I get why, but why?
But yeah, obviously, in the clip you would have heard that they break the handle off and then they're trapped in this I keep saying vault, but let's say safe, basically. I did like immediately Barkley just starts screaming.
Help! Help! Help!
I think the safe shows a lot of the true colours of Barkley. I think
A weed.
yeah. Alison tries to steer Fanny back to her room, but Fanny basically says, well, what about this room? And it turns out it's the captain's room. She says that she doesn't know if he'd want to move. And then Alison tries to ask her directly, but dances around it essentially. She said, oh, do you think the captain would mind if he was asked to be moved, to try and get a feeling for what she'd be like? And asks if she would mind if it was her, and you know, all of this, and Fanny just flat out says, have you tried asking him, basically. I think Fanny's cottoned on at this point. There's definitely a scene later on which that hammers this home, but she's already cottoned on what's happening here. The ghosts all go to find Robin, who's in the kitchen, and they ask what he did on the day that Kitty died. And he immediately goes defensive and says he wants a lawyer present, which would be very difficult. And they reassure him that he's not being accused of anything. They know he didn't kill anyone, and he sort of smiles and looks at it's like, I think Robin has much darker past than we. Well, I mean, we know he's got a darker past.
Definitely. He's a caveman.
He is, yeah. And when he's asked about this, or what he did during that day, he said he didn't really pay much attention to what was going on outside. Inside, he said he was outside most of the day. He said he did see Eleanor go outside, and she went to her herb garden, and then goes to list the herbs that she grew in her herb garden: sage, mint, deadly nightshade, which they all panic about, and then he just continues to list rosemary, thyme. That didn't seem that concerned to it. And she mentions that he mentions that Eleanor made a tea for Kitty as well and took it to her room, and they think this is it. This is what killed her, basically. She's been either poisoned her straight away here, or have been systematically poisoned her. So they think at this point they need to go and talk to Kitty. We go back to the safe, and Mike says that that somebody will be around soon, but we find out that his phone is also locked outside of the safe, so he can't call for help. Also, if it's soundproof, I wonder if it's also like signal proof. Sometimes they are, like, so might not be that useful. And Barkley continues to scream for help. He panics, thinking, "Oh, it's getting really hot, and they might start losing air in this." But Mike just tells him he just needs to stay calm. And he says, "What about if they play a game?" And he suggests they play I Spy. So again, not really that useful in a safe where you have nothing to look at, I suppose. We go back to Kitty, who is still watching Is It Cake, and has been engrossed by this all day, it seems. And the captain, all the ghosts come in to talk to her, and the captain immediately is distracted by Is It Cake. I don't know if he's seen it before, but he's definitely intrigued by by the concept. As is everybody. I think when you first see it, you just go, that's obviously not a cake. Oh, it is a cake.
Yeah.
It is impressive, but as you said, like, it has a limited appeal. I think after a while you just go, well, that one obviously isn't a cake, is a cake. So
I do get sucked into those videos online. What, I'm like, where's another video?
But they all come to speak to her, and they ask her about the tea, and she says that Eleanor always bought her tea and did it quite often. and they explain that this was her poisoning her, basically, and she'd been doing it over a long period of time. And Thomas again calls her a bitch, and the captain says that he really needs to stop listening to gangster rap. So that's where he's got it from. And he says that it's raw poetry, the most raw poetry he'd ever listened to, which is... It is interesting, to be fair, if you listen to rap. I suppose it does have that kind of, like, poetic sort of... if you just wrote it down, I wonder if it would just read like a poem. Explicit poem, a lot of them, but, you know.
Oh, yeah.
She says that she didn't have any tea on the day that she died, so it couldn't possibly be poisoning. She was too busy playing hide and seek, and then we get a little bit of a flashback where we see... I don't know who the other person was, but it's Bum and Back and...
They do say his
guy.
name, but I can't remember
Yeah,
what it was. I didn't write it down.
It was began with a P, wasn't it? Like Pimple Pomp or something like that. Something silly, you know what I mean? Like, but these two were talking, and long story short, they're talking about embezzling goods from the crown. So, you know, this is quite a crime, yeah. They say that it was stolen by pirates, which wasn't true. And Kitty overheard all of this, and like sort of goes away. And this is where they now think, oh, maybe they were involved, and she's been killed to silence her, basically. Back in the safe, Barclay's now really hungry, and they've also both removed their clothes. Not all of their clothes, but, you know.
Down to his vest.
Yeah, to a vest. Very die hard.
No, it's not at all.
Just a vest, that's what I mean. And they realise they don't have any food. Barclay says how hungry he is. And Mike realises he has secret wagon wheel, which I haven't had a wagon wheel in so long. Like,
wagon wheel?
That's... Oh,
What do you mean a wagon wheel?
that's just how I say it. Okay, leave me alone. A wagon wheel.
Wagon wheel.
But yeah, I've not had one of those in so long.
Yeah, I don't like them.
I mean, it's just like a round Kit Kat, really, isn't it? Or you can get the one with the
It's
marshmallow.
got marshmallow and I don't like it. Haven't they all got marshmallow?
I don't think they've all got marshmallow. I think you can get one that doesn't have marshmallow in. I think. I don't know.
No, because it's got white in the middle. That's the marshmallow. They've all got white in the middle.
Well, I'll double check this. We'll find out what types of wagon wheels there are.
Wagon wheels.
And
It's maggots all over again, isn't it?
and Barclay thinks so for how he's been. He's not going to get any of this chocolate. And Mike, being the good guy that he is, breaks it in half and gives him half without asking, basically. And Barclay kind of, you can tell he
clocks it, doesn't
clocks
he?
it and takes this in, yeah. Back outside, Alison finally leads Fanny back to her room, and Fanny, in so many words, accuses her of not being direct.
The attic rooms aren't suitable. You won't consider the east wing. You've ruled out all the others, so unless you can think of something else.
Yeah, okay, so just to recap, Mike and I were thinking this side of the house, close to our bedroom, not too big, north...
Where's your spunk?
What?
Where's your spunk? When you first arrived in this house, you were full of spunk.
Okay, all right, can we stop saying...
Too much spunk, if anything. You rolled up your sleeves and you did everything you could to make a life for yourself here. And I always admired that about you, Alison. If you want my room, you only have to ask.
Please, can we have your room for the nursery?
Yes, that's the spunk I like.
Thank you so much. That's...
I shall take Julian's room and you can see to it that he finds another, right?
Very much the usage of a word has changed slightly in
Not a good word.
I wonder if it's I wonder if it's a British thing. I don't know if I need to explain what it is.
I don't think we
Just
need to.
Google the word and UK slang if you aren't unaware of why this is funny. But yes,
I couldn't even write the word. I was just like...
much like sucked off, I think Alison very much wants them to stop saying it,
Like,
but she
what?
will
No.
not stop saying it. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, she eventually
Stop saying it.
stops saying it, and they come to an accord where she'll give her a room, but says that she's taking Julian's. So she's still got another hard conversation, I think, after this.
Yeah.
Because Julian seems just as uncompromising as Fanny is. We go back to the main room, and Alison finds all the ghosts are talking about these potential suspects for Kitty's death. Says it could be Eleanor, it could be these the two aristocrats, basically, and they all argue about it over who they think it is. And Robin says that Eleanor actually took the tea quite late in the day, and this was, so it probably wasn't Eleanor poisoning her because she took it to her quite late. And then he says something which I think a lot of people overlooked, was that he'd actually been distracted all day just chasing around this weird spider he saw. And obviously this is sort of the immediate evidence that they needed. He says that the spider had an orange stripe on its back, and he mentioned that it actually killed a goose, and that's when they realise that this is some... I think it's meant to be like a Black Widow, isn't it? Like, or a red...
Well, I had a look actually, and I've just had a look now as well.
Okay.
And it seems like it's a redback spider,
Yeah.
also known as the Australian Black Widow.
Because
It's a species of highly venomous spider believed to originate in Australia, but now Southeast Asia and New Zealand. I don't know, maybe that isn't it? Because
there's a similar... I think a Black Widow in America is the same thing. Well, a similar kind of thing, basically. But yeah, also very poisonous. So yeah, if you are bitten by it and don't have an anti-venom, which they definitely wouldn't because they didn't know what it
it
was.
says the bite may produce the following symptoms: intense localized pain, which Kitty didn't seem to have, with swelling and sweating starting from 5 minutes after the bite. Pain and swelling may be experienced over the body after half an hour. Headache, nausea, and vomiting may occur after 1 hour. Profuse sweating is common.
There you go.
Not good.
Not good.
I'm so glad we don't have those type of poisonous things in this country.
The worst we've got is like the adder. It's like a snake, and they're very rare. And
Can
these,
they kill you?
if you're already really like frail, I think they could probably kill you.
But like Australia, well, we've obviously got our Australian listeners will be able
was
to
gonna
tell
say,
us all the other sort of animals or insects that might kill us.
I remember my uncle just when he was working on something, like a brown snake just casually came out of the grass next to him, and he was like, "Oh, snake!" And then everyone was like, "Yeah, that's a really deadly snake."
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, I think you just have to be careful. What else did we see in when we was in Australia? And he stood on a jellyfish, which somebody said might have been a box jellyfish. They're quite bad. Yeah, just a lot of bad things. We saw dolphins and instantly presumed they're sharks. We were like, oh, they're sharks. So yeah, Australia, man, it's an interesting place. But yeah, so with this piece of evidence now, they now realise what actually happened. We get another flashback and we see this pineapple scene again, but this time after she pricks her finger, we see that a spider falls from the pineapple, so it's a spider bite. Eleanor takes tea up to Kitty, but the doctor says that she's very unwell, so obviously we know she was taking it up to her to sort of comfort her.
I think it's her dad.
Is that her dad? Is it? Yeah.
And
I thought it
he
was the
says we
doctor.
need to call for the doctor.
Oh, yeah. I just instantly assume her dad is the captain. Yeah. One flashback. But yeah, so she's unwell, and Eleanor goes in to speak to Kitty, and it's quite a change for Eleanor in this one. There's two change of hearts of character in this episode, really. So Eleanor apologizes for not being kind to her.
She looks genuinely concerned.
Yeah.
She?
She says she never took anything. She always thought that she took things from her, but she never took anything. She only gave. And she just says that she doesn't want her to die.
Kitty always sees Eleanor as a good person, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Or did.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me wonder maybe if Kitty heard Eleanor say this and that kind of realised that she did like her and
Informed a final opinion on her.
Yeah. If she was able to hear what Eleanor said.
Yeah.
I mean, she's never talked about it when it was sort of coming out that maybe Eleanor wasn't quite as nice. And I think she wasn't nice to her.
No,
but
she was definitely mean.
I do wonder, as you said, like if that sort of those final moments, Kitty was sort of present for and sort of informed what she thought of Eleanor.
I think Eleanor did do all these mean things, but I think she just
Redeemed.
at the end she just regretted it basically. I imagine it happens with a lot of people, you know what I mean? So they all run back to find Kitty and tell her that Eleanor didn't kill her, which Kitty doesn't seem surprised by at all. She's like, I know. And Thomas asked to check Kitty's hand, and this is where we see these 2 pinpricks on her hand of where the spider bit her. And they explain to her what happened and how she died, and her immediate reaction is like Peter Parker. So she doesn't have special powers. She just died, unfortunately. They say that she was just unlucky that she touched it first, and she says, well, or you could say that she was lucky because if Eleanor had picked it up, then Alison would have never been born, which Fanny realises she would have never have been born as well. And Thomas says he would never be here, and Fanny says, no, you would have been. It would have been fine.
He always just wants to make it about himself.
100%, yeah. He's just very narcissistic, I think. Back in the safe, Barclay asks about what's in all these boxes, and Mike goes on to tell him.
What's in these boxes anyway?
Cot, changing table, baby stuff.
I bet you're excited.
Yeah. Actually, I'm scared. I don't know if I can. I nearly got hit by lightning last year. I got stuck up on the roof a couple of years before that. Now I've locked myself in a safe. How am I going to look after a baby? I can barely look after myself.
I'm sure you're going to be a great dad. You'll be fun. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody is. You just have to love them.
Thank you.
When they make you proud, tell them.
There you are. What are you doing?
Thank goodness, Annabelle. Do you have water?
How did...
Don't ask.
And after this scene, Alison finally finds them and lets them out and asks them what they're doing in here. And they said they've been trapped in here for ages. And Alison lets them know, it's only been an hour and a half.
I think when she walks in, they're hugging.
Yeah, yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. They sort of accepted their fate that they're going to be trapped in here forever. And Alison says, "Oh, I guess if you've been in there, you've come to an agreement." To which Mike goes to say that no, we haven't come to an agreement. But Barclay says that we have. It's going to be 50-50, straight in the middle. And he says that Mike didn't have to give him half of the Wagon Wheel. But he did, at the goodness of his heart. So he's going to repay the favour, basically. And he says he's going to go home now and tell Bunny he loves her. So in this hour and a half, he's had a proper change of character. Whether it sticks, we don't know. But yeah, I like that this is the final sort of time we see Barclay. Because I'm pretty sure this is the last time we see Barclay.
Yeah, I don't think we see him again.
And we finally get him. You could say it's a quick turn of character, but the episode's only 30 minutes, so it's going to have to be quick, you know what I mean? So it has to be somewhat dramatic.
Yeah.
But I quite liked it that he's turned a new leaf. I mean, Scrooge did pretty quickly, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So anyone can. All the ghosts come down the stairs. I like Kitty practicing shooting a web. And I tell her it's not going to happen. Alison has a letter now from the heritage people about the blue plaque and who's going to be on it.
A lot. When she came out with this letter, I was like, "Oh, they got back to her within like an hour because she only sent it earlier that day."
Yeah, you have to assume that there's a big time.
Some time has passed since.
And yeah, they are getting a blue plaque, and the blue plaque simply says Henry VIII dined here in 1546. So all of them are completely ignored in this for the big guy, quite literally the big guy, Henry VIII. Alison says that she thought they'd be disappointed, so she made some of their own. her own blue plaques, which turn out to be cake, which we find out later. I mean, it's quite obvious, quite obviously to everybody but one. And I like how they just are quite matter of fact. Humphrey Bone was decapitated here, Thomas Thorne was shot here, and Julian Fawcett died conducting an affair with his secretary. They aren't that impressed with how blunt they are, and they say, "Oh, I don't really want to be reminded of all this," so they sort of walk away unimpressed. And then finally, Alison cuts into them, revealing that they're cake to Kitty's amusement. She cannot believe it as she just screams that it's cake.
Yeah.
And then we end the episode. So, what do you think?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a definite step up from last episode.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it was funny. I enjoy the flashbacks.
Definitely.
And I enjoy learning about the character, so it was interesting to see how Kitty died. I think we I was going to say we know how all of them died now, but we don't. We've still got
There's just one, I think, left in it now. The captain, I think, yeah.
So obviously we've got that to come. So yeah, I thought it was a good episode. I think it was kind of like a good nice to see Barclay in a different way. I do kind of enjoy his character.
Yeah.
Funny because he's definitely not a type of person I would want to be friends with.
Yeah.
But I do kind of enjoy his character, and I enjoy that he kind of has a bit of a redemption as well.
Yeah, definitely.
You kind of see him as a human. So yeah, I think it just overall it was just a good episode. I think out of 10. Give it a 9.
9. Okay.
Yeah.
Strong.
Yeah, I think now I've just had a quick look actually at what episodes to come, and I can't even remember exactly what happens in each of the episodes. But it looks like I've just seen from the still of one of the things we do see Obi again.
Okay.
So I've kind of forgot that we saw him again. So yeah, I'm sort of looking forward to. I don't know. Do we? Yeah, series 5. Yeah, we do. We do see him again. So yeah, it's just some great episodes to come. I can't believe we've literally got 4 episodes.
I know. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's just crazy to think we've only got 4 to go after this one. So,
yeah. What
do you think?
Yeah, I was seeing if you forgot, and then if you were just going to go. Oh, we're not done. I thought it was a nice, simple whodunit story. Just tracking who's who could have possibly killed Kate, and he finally answers that question as well. I like the character growth of, as you said, Barclay, and also with Eleanor, because I feel like she's only in it briefly, and it's nice that at the end we realise that she did actually care for Kitty, and it wasn't as mean as it seemed throughout the series. And I thought all the subplots as well that they had all had funny conclusions as well. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this. I gave it an 8 because I gave last week's a 7, I think. So IMDb with 305 votes gave it an 8.2. So in the middle of ours. Yeah. I feel like we're kind of creating the average.
I think the first episode it kind of got away with me, and I scored it really high, and I kind of regretted that.
I can't remember what you gave it.
I gave it a 9.5, I think.
The first episode of this series?
Of this series, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I think I just scored it I think I let the moment run away with me, I think I said, and it's so I don't know, it's all gone to, I want to say swear word, but I'm not going to say it's not a rule breaker like some.
We'll leave it at that.
Ghost Stories with Luke and Tash.
So I remembered the story this week. So I find it quite difficult to find one.
Yeah.
Because obviously we don't want one that's like a novel length, and we don't want one that's 5 sentences, and something in the middle is hard to find.
I think the last one I did, I had to make it longer or slightly longer. It was like 5 lines, so I sort of expanded it a bit. But yeah.
Yeah, I find it a bit difficult to find like good length ones, but I found one. I'll be honest, it's not the greatest.
Okay. What a setup to a story that is.
Review. But it's a story.
Buckle up, guys.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest.
It's a story, and that's what people want, apparently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no one said don't do them, so you know,
No.
you've only got yourself to blame there.
So, I think this is a true story.
Okay.
Or based. It's more like an encounter that's, I think, true.
Okay.
Less a ghost story, more so just sort of makes you think. So, once upon a time in Tyrone. If you don't know where Tyrone is, that's in Northern Ireland.
Coronation Street, isn't it?
No. I think it's in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
There were 2 little children, the son and daughter of parents who had died when they were little. They'd missed their parents very much, but they were raised by a guardian who was a fanatical atheist and was determined to convert the children to his beliefs. But they would have none of it, and so they made a childhood pact. The first of them to die would return to prove the other that life existed after death. Well, the 2 children grow up to become the Lord of Tyrone and Lady Beresford, well known and respected nobility. But one day, Lady Beresford awoke to find her siblings standing beside her bed. He told her he had just died, and he reminded her of the promises they made to one another as children. Then the spirit spoke of the future and told her that her husband would die and she would find love again and have 4 children, all well and good. But then it continued and told her she herself would die at the age of 47. Of course, she was very frightened and suspected she might still be dreaming, so she asked her brother to prove the truth of his words. He reached out with one spectral hand and touched her wrist, which turned black and withered, and so it was the next morning. Forever after, she wore a black ribbon to cover the mark. And all that had been predicted came to pass. Her husband died, she did marry again, and 4 children she had. But when her 47th birthday came around, she didn't die, and heaved a sigh of relief that this... What?
Sorry, no, I can imagine that's a stressful birthday.
And he would a sigh of relief that this piece of wisdom from beyond the grave at last had proved false. For her 48th birthday, she threw a small party, as befitted a lady of the time, and had some friends around, among them a priest who had known the family for many years. Upon seeing the hangings and hearing people speak of her age, he called her aside with a smile. "Do you know, my dear, your age?" he asked. "Why, of course," she replied. "I'm 48. "Ah," he said, tapping the side of his nose, "but you are not. I checked the registry only this morning, and your records were mixed up. You are 47. Thinking this loss of an extra year would please her. She nearly fainted away and told him he had signed her death warrant, and with that she went to her rooms, made out her will, and died that very night."
Sounds like like a horror film. It's like the end of Drag Me to Hell, where she thinks, I've got rid of the curse, it's all good, and my life's going to be great now, and he turns up and he's like, oh no. Sorry for ruining the end of Drag Me to Hell there, but I mean, it's in the title. But yeah, like that priest didn't realise how bad he's made the situation there. So it was an interesting story. Did you say it's based on a true story?
Yeah,
or?
I think the people, I think it was based on true stories.
There you
So
go.
there we go. There's your story.
Yeah.
There's your story. Can't wait for yours next week / later
in
today.
a few hours. Yeah, I've completely forgot about the story, so I'm not going to. I'm joking.
Thanks for listening. We love to hear what you think, and if you'd like to keep up to date with when new episodes of the podcast are released, you can follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook profile. Just search Haunting Button House. You can also get in touch via email at hauntingbuttonhouse@outlook.com.